So, welcome to my latest YouTube installation. It's about relocating the post-palatal seal, also known as the post-dam. Technoclinical suggestions and techniques will go along with this video. I want to grab a laser pointer here so you can see. So this particular case came back to me after 8 months. It's an immediate denture, and the doctor felt that he wanted to extend the postpalatal seal area in green stick to see if it would help the retention. He felt that it did, and so he wanted me to place a brand new post dam in that existing denture. Not a problem, except that, as I told him, there's a fee for this because I needed a completed impression at the onset of the case when I made the immediate, but he had rejected the notion because of the fact that he didn't want to recall the patient. Also, in order for our clinicians, our dentists, to prevent this kind of a situation, I always suggest that they palpate the area with a mirror and mark it with a pencil so that we already have that distance, because the post-palatal border and the fovea and our post-dam placement, which is a default area, isn't really that effective past about 30-40%. So that means 70% of the time it's not at its maximum efficiency. With that being said, I take this green stick, and I know that this is run up over the top of here, and it's really not going to be that good of a seal when I put it in acrylic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the most posterior border, the lengthening of this. I'm going to establish that, and then I'm going to make a post dam to go along with that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So the first thing I do is, with that green stick underneath, I take an impression using a PVS putty, not your standard lab putty, but in this case I use a 95 shore hardness putty. I want something a little firmer. I don't want any kind of flex. And I place it in here and I make sure that it's well adapted, wait for it to set up, and then I take a scalpel and I cut across to expose the junction between the putty and the acrylic so that I know that it's in place when I take it on and off, and that it is back. It basically is a reveal, okay? So once I have that, then what I do is I pull it apart to show you, and you could see how crummy this is. I don't really want that. What I want is the length, which I'm establishing, but I want to put a better post dam in there, and I don't want to have any kind of compression over the hamular ligaments in these areas. So I'll take it and I'll relieve it so that I still have that maintained posterior border, but this will be flat and even with the rest of the tissue here. So basically, I've built myself a brand new extension or a ledge. Now on top of that, I'm going to go and I'm going to place my post dam, okay? So I remove all that area, tissue bearing area, but again, like I say, preserve that length. Just to show you the length, right about here is where it was, where it had terminated prior, and so there was quite a bit of extra that presented itself as a lengthening. So what I do is I take out my wax, I take a pencil first and I trace in where I think the post dam should be now, and then I call the doctor and suggested a try-in if possible to check to make sure for the efficacy, how efficient this is going to work in the mouth. He rejected the notion, said that I'm sure it will be fine. I sent him this picture, and so I went ahead and proceeded to the next step. However, if you are an in-house lab, or if you're a denturist, or even a dentist that's viewing this video, you could do this yourself. Build that ledge up, cut it back, build your post dam in, try it in, check the efficacy, and then move on to the next step, which I'll show you here in a second. This technique isn't all that difficult once you have some of the little nuances down. So once I've obviously had that had that post-am in place, I take another impression now over the top of it, doing the same thing, pushing it in and cutting it back. But the difference is, in this picture, is that I've taken off the wax now, and you can see I still have the post-am. Okay, so now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to fill that with acrylic. So what I do is that I place it, and now I can cut it back, and I do a bit. And the reason that I cut it back at this point, after I've already established and have maintained it in the putty, is that I'm going to take and wrap a rubber band around this. Not too snug, but it doesn't really matter if it's snug or not. I want the intimacy of the putty to the inside of the denture to be maintained, and I don't want it to lift out at any time. So by cutting back, by putting a rubber band across here and then beforehand cutting this back, what I've done is I've provided the empty area, an access to the empty area where the post-am was and I had removed, right? Because one of the drawbacks of this technique in the early years for me had always been that you get acrylic that creeps underneath the putty or stone, and then you get like a little bit of flash, and you get a misfit. By keeping this firm and then opening up an area behind it, I can take and I can cram the loose acrylic, the wet acrylic, down into that area, which I do. I basically lay it in there, and then I take and I have an instrument and I push it in, a little rounded instrument, and I keep pushing it in, and then I put some more on there and push it in until it's completely filled. And then I take and I wet my finger with water and I just tap the outside of it, and when I do, I can smear it off, I can press it in, but I know that it can't flash on me, and that's the big thing. So I'm filling it from the back. I'm not filling it from the inside and then placing this on top of the putty. The putty is intimate to the denture, and I'm placing it into the void from the back. Okay? And I've established where the border is, so I'm not going to lose that. So it doesn't matter if I cut it back like I did on that other picture. Well, on this picture actually. Okay, so I'll move forward. So here it is. I bind it to prevent movement, and now I'm going to mix up my self-cure and I'm going to jam it down in there like I said before until it's full and intimate. And then I took my finger and wet it, and I just pat it, push it, push it, push it, push it. If I have to add any more, I do, but at this point I didn't. I'll get a little flashing here, but I can trim that back quite easily. A little bit of it ran up here on the putty, no big deal because it doesn't stick to putty. I'll be able to pull that off and trim it back to that nicely established border. Here's what it looks like at that point. Pull it off. It's placed. There's no flashing out here. I used a different color of acrylic here because I wanted him to be able to see where I had placed it versus where it had been. It's not a big deal for the patient. I also, after the fact, because this is self-curing resin, I had to find a way to avoid having it yellow and stain and pick up color afterwards. So I sealed it with Optiglaze clear so that it would not corrupt. Here's what it looks like when it's trimmed and finished from the palatal area, as you can see. Right on the money. And then here's from the inside of the denture, just to show you again. I mean, this is a really simple technique. Maybe to me it's simple, maybe to a few of us seasoned veterans it's simple. But the fact is that this is a very simple way to accomplish a task that we might be called upon to perform from time to time in our laboratory, and it doesn't take much time, and so we can save time, and we also of course have a fee for this, and less time, better results, more money. That's what it's about, and about the things staying in the patient's mouth. By presenting that wax earlier with the post-am in place is really the way to roll, because you get a clinical evaluation before you turn it into acrylic. Anyway, just a quick one. Wanted to show you what I was up to. There's the other side, just again to show you. And appreciate your interest in what I'm doing on my YouTube channel. And if you're interested in joining the Zaleske Removable Study Club, on Facebook. Just ask and we'll accept you, I'm sure. Anyways, thanks for stopping by. I hope this helps. Have a great day.